You're listening to Selling the Dream. This isn't an interview, and we're not journalists, but each week, we'll ask our guests to open up and share their secrets to business success. Let's have a conversation and have some fun.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Selling the Dream, a podcast that talks about entrepreneurship, leadership, and sales. And as always, I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Joe Iredell. Joe, how are you, my man?
I'm doing great, man.
We got a super cool show today. I had the pleasure of meeting this couple a couple of weeks ago, and Joe, they were referred to me by two friends of the show, Jay Duran and Ed Fordyce. Both told me you gotta meet Bruno and Stacie, and totally separate recommendations, but all roads lead to our guests today, Bruno and Stacie Marsinkowski from the Dream Team 1, at HomeSmart Realty Advisors. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thank you. We're super excited to be on, and we appreciate the invite.
Sure, it's a lot of fun. These podcasts. It's you feel like you've been on all of them, and that's probably the case. At least it feels that way. But for us, we try and have a little bit of fun. But at the same time, I know what you guys are doing, and I think that there's a tremendous value that you guys are bringing, especially to the real estate world, that I want to dive into today. But before we get crazy, I know we don't want to spend too much time on it, but why don't you guys start by just giving us a little bit of background on how you guys came together and got into this crazy real estate world?
Okay. Well, Bruno and I have known each other for about over 30 years. And we originally met through friends. Later on, I don't know, maybe 15 plus years after that, we've reconnected through a mutual friend event. And we were both single at the time, and we just kind of struck up a conversation. Things led from, one to another, and we started dating from there. And then we ended up getting into the real estate business together. So I was already in real estate when I met Bruno. Bruno was in IT securities and kind of like looking for a change. And we came together and then formed the Dream Team 1 after I convinced him to get his real estate license and join us.
That was pretty good.
Thanks.
Bruno, anything to add?
So, Stacie always hits that tone so elegantly. Thanks, Stacie. It's really good.
You're so welcome.
We were really lucky in our 40s. We both got single, and we were lucky enough to run into each other and create a great life together. So, we implore people, if you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, to hang in there. That person's still out there. So just don't settle and hang in there, and you'll get there.
I love that. I want to talk real quick about you guys working together in real estate. I think it's the coolest thing in the world when two people who are together work together. And Joe has some insight to this too. I'm gonna let my dog out. Joe and his wife work together. So how are you guys? What are some of the challenges that you guys face? I mean, it seems like you work really, really well together. I can't imagine that there's any issues, right?
Zero issues. We start the day. It's real easy from the beginning to the end. No, the truth is, and we talk to a lot of folks. I'm glad you asked that, Ken, because we try to spread this message around that, we talk about like two carpenters maybe wouldn't be the best partners. You might want a carpenter, an electrician, or a carpenter and a roofer. So we talk to folks about trying to complement each other's skill sets. And Stacie was in the legal field for a lot of years, very law-based, very ethical-based, with her degree in human resources, where I come from a bar background with a technology background. So when you join those two, if you could have the courage to join those two, you make a great partnership. From that, we stay out of each other's lanes. And I guess that's what I was mainly getting to, is where we don't really cross each other's industries. She taught me contract work, and all of my wife's social media is hers. So we do cross each other's fields, but where she's an expert, she remains the boss and she has the final say. And where I remain the expert, we kind of just respect those lines, so that's part of it there.
Yeah, I mean, I was a realtor maybe about 3 to 4 years before Bruno got into real estate. And so when he decided to, I was kind of hitting a ceiling as a solo agent and wanted to form a team. And when I approached him with it, he was a little hesitant because, he was in his 40s, just like I was, getting my real estate license. And I said, it's really not that bad. And it's easier than you think. Why don't you take the plunge with me and go on this venture, because we do want to grow something bigger, and I would love for you to join the team. And so with that, he did get his license. And I had to think about, I did all hats on every role. So when we were making that plunge, we decided upon the name between each other. We looked at a lot of different names. We didn't really want to use our last names or any kind of standard names that people use. We wanted something more unique,
more inclusive
if we were going to have a team. And we started him out on the buyer side of things and taught him that role, and that's where he began. So we kind of weren't doing duplicative work, and I was handling more of the listing side, and we always go on showings together. So
yeah, we do it all everything together. But offer strategy and things, I'll put my 50 cents in. We'll talk to our generators, Sage and Atlas, and the four of us come up with offer strategy, but in the end, Stacie puts the pen to the paper, where when I'm working on marketing campaigns or, moving money around to buy certain things, of course, Stacie has a say in the budget and everything, but she'll generally lean toward my final discussion there. And, and that's kind of how we start every day that way.
Joe, I don't know if you caught that. When most people give advice, it's their 2 cents. When Bruno gives advice, it's 50 cents. So it's definitely worth something.
I like that a lot.
And I do like, and I wanted to say, Ken, I do like how my wife said, "Oh, join real estate. It's easy. It's a test." Yeah. I'm in my 40s, scared to death to take a test. And then I read about it and it says most people fail between 3 and 9 times. I'm like, oh, sweat pouring down my face. So,
like those old Penn State days.
Yeah, exactly right.
All right, before we pivot to the next topic, I do want to ask, because again, I forgot. I told you I was going to forget, and as soon as I start talking, I forgot. We did not hit on our 2 truths and a lie. So we're going to take a quick break, and I want to ask you guys for 3 facts. 2 of them are true, 1 of them's a lie, and by the time we're done, Joe is going to hopefully be able to tell us which one he thinks is the lie.
My record isn't so great lately, man. I gotta say,
All right, so who wants to go first?
All right, so what are we going to do? Go 3 total between us?
3 total.
Okay. All right, so I don't know, years ago, I was really excited about politics, and I got to meet President Bush down at the airport, and I got to take him off Air Force One, and I hung out with the FBI and drove in the motorcade.
Okay, I like that. Number 2?
I was a gymnast back in the day, and was approached by several different gyms to advance to a potential position to compete for the Olympics, and in that sector, and turned it down.
Okay, and number 3?
So let's see. Number 3, not too long ago, I was able to go to Washington, and I did some high scale mountain climbing, which was the first time since I lost a lot of weight. So I did some high scale mountain climbing, and I was pretty excited because it was the first time I ever did it.
Okay, awesome. High scale. So we met President Bush and at the airport, turned down a possible Olympic dream, and mountain climbing in Washington. So there's it. We'll see which one's the lie. All right, so let's dive into your passion, the passion project that you guys have really been, jumping into with both feet, and that is AI. And, as Joe said, what did you say, Joe, when I said we're going to be talking about AI today?
I said he's my favorite Sixer ever.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So different kind of AI, not that AI. But it's obviously a hot topic, and it is literally everywhere. Not a single software product, and just about everything now has an AI component to it. But you guys are both huge advocates in AI and business, specifically real estate. How has AI impacted the way you approach sales and real estate in general?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So what we tell people is, it's never going to replace. And Ken, we appreciate the plug first off, because it is brand new and it's brand new to the industry. And we do want to thank you for sponsoring one of our first larger events. So, shout out to Princeton and you, Ken, personally. So, that was a great way to meet you, my friend. And then you sent us all those great gifts in the mail, like the chocolate chip cookies. So just throw those plugs out there.
My trademark.
Yeah. So, we tell people that it's not going to replace, and we don't just do real estate. We do law firms, we do medical, we do restaurants, because we're implementation experts. We're not really coaches or mentors per se. We help implement it into people's businesses. It's not going to replace lenders or real estate agents. Who it is going to replace is lending and real estate agents who don't learn how to implement AI. So it's going to save you about 8 to 12 hours a week. My wife and I are full-time realtors. It's all we do. And we've managed to write a book, write a syllabus for workshops that you were a part of, Ken, and your company. And now we have a bunch of them booked for different companies with different branding, with different syllabuses and different schedules and different workshops. And there's no way my wife or I could go on WordPerfect and redo all of each of these each time we needed to do it, unless it was our full-time job and we would probably need multiple assistants. Right. So what we're trying to say is this gives you that opportunity to save those hours every week. And it isn't to sit on the couch and watch Netflix unless you want to, but we're trying to teach people how to implement it. And then that mother that's home, that's doing 30 deals a year, that's taking their children to school also and sports, if she wants to write an ebook or sell things on Etsy, or she wants to open up a digital store or learn digital branding, these things are at your fingertips now where you could take on a second and third type idea, and it doesn't have to be a hobby anymore. It could become a career, like what's happening for Stacie and I.
Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why we're really able to integrate it into real estate, because we saw the power in it over the last year and a half or two. And people were reaching out to us separately, real estate agents, and saying, hey, what are you doing so differently on your social media platforms? Because they're so vibrant, they're so catchy, that, what app do you have? And I said, it's not just an app, but it was a little hard to explain at the time, but then Bruno and I sat down, had a longer conversation about it, said, we really think that there's a need here, and that we can help various brokerages, various businesses help implement that into their lives so they can see the power of that tool as well.
Yeah, and to answer your question more directly, we didn't do a lot of FSBO work, and we didn't do a lot of expired work, and then here comes learning how to work with a generator and it helping you write targeted FSBOs, and now imagine that, you wake up and your kids are screaming and you're late for work and this and that, and you have to write a happy email, or you have to write, something with a lot of emotion. You may not get that across the right way because, you're just not in the right frame of mind. So these are the things that we're teaching people, to save that time. And, you wake up, and if you're a content creator like Stacie and I, and you're foggy that day, I could ask for 10 creative, unique ideas about real estate and, cool hairstyles and mix it up with a movie quote and let's post that. So that's the kind of thing that, you can't really measure, guys.
Now, a lot of people are afraid of AI. So talk to me about some of the fears that are out there, aside from the fear that they're going to be replaced. Are there any other fears that the terms AI, artificial intelligence, evoke in the people that you've spoken to?
Well, I think just like anything else, when you're going through a transformation like this, everybody's fearful of change, right? Nobody likes it. They're kind of resistant of it. I use the analogy when I was the director of law firms for 25 years, when they were straddling WordPerfect and Word, and we had businesses that were combining and overlapping and transitioning into Word. Staff members were resistant of that. Just like that, I feel like because of what they don't know makes them a little more fearful of it. So why we're doing these interactive workshops like this is to take that fear out, and it's all beginner information. And, Bruno really spent a ton of time going through a lot of these applications to make it as easy as possible for the ones that are most user friendly, that will really help people out in their day-to-day lives and their businesses.
Yeah.
So we kind of take that fear out.
Yeah, and the wonky part, Ken and guys, is you do know that it goes directly to your CRMs. It works with your funnels. So it gets a lot more wonky than the cool avatars and things. When I wake up in the morning, basically my whole day's laid out for me. If I type in to my generator now, Sage, can you lay out the next 6 workshops along with my showing schedule for the week? It'll lay it all out for me. So it's really like having a full-time assistant once you learn how to operate it the right way. And that's what we're trying to help folks with.
Yeah.
I do want to piggyback. I don't like that phrase. I do want to continue what Stacie was saying. I talk about in the class, Ken, again, what you were a part of. Imagine if you owned a Conestoga wagon company when Henry Ford, came on the scene and started with the assembly line. You were scared, right? But to this day, you still see Amish folks and people using horse and buggy, and there still been ways to continue using those businesses, but it slowed down and it changed. Just like, Yahoo.com, the internet, the moon landing. Then we're going to be here to guide a lot of folks with it. We've been through a lot of this together, so it's not much different. It really isn't.
Well, AI is real. The moon landing was fake. So, that's one of the differences. Joe, let me ask you, because so one of Joe's businesses is internet marketing. Joe's involved in internet marketing, nonprofit, as well as some stuff in the medical space. But Joe, how's AI impacted what you and Laura do specifically with shore sites? Are you seeing a wave, like that shore sites and wave? Are you seeing it impacting that side of the business as well?
It's certainly taken off a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to content creation. And then in terms of like dynamic user experience, there's websites now that basically, based on upstream and downstream traffic, each individual user, when you go to a website, you'll see something different than someone else. So that's the trend what's going with fluid websites these days, that the content on there is custom tailored to the individual that got to that site based on everything, which is really scary. And this is what's scary. Well, this is why it's scary, right? And we saw over the past couple of years how divisive our country can get over issues. And it's a lot from confirmation bias. And if you have AI working in a way which is curating information for an individual versus someone else who's seeing something completely different. Like if I have person A that every time that they go online and it says milk is poison, don't drink milk. And then person B, every time that they look something up about milk, it says milk is the greatest stuff. It'll make your bones, whatever. So that's all they see when they go on based on their previous choices or anything like that, because AI is determined that this is the best information for them for some reason. You put those two people in a room and all they know is what they've researched on that. So that's where the scary part of some of these applications of AI are can compound upon themselves, I guess, in a wrong direction. So getting back to your original question, AI for us it's like having the best intern you've ever gotten in your entire life. However, you have to train that intern because it's only going to do exactly how you train it, and it'll follow directions and make some intuitive choices, but it's 100% what you put in and how you train the intern is going to get the result that you get. So that's really how we've been using it. And it's cool. There's some nuances to it because you fear that some of the authenticity of the message can kind of fall off, and but that's as it gets smarter and as you train the intern, the messaging gets better, it gets more in line. So
Indeed, it
that's where
does.
we're at
Yeah,
with
I
it.
Yeah.
agree with that statement
Yeah.
completely.
If you look at our posts and you look at our emails, it talks with faith. It talks with, mathematical equations. It has that mathy, earthy taste, whereas Stacie has more of a 70s, 80s, 90s vibe. You can literally see, because our generators are so trained that,
Mm-hmm.
it has taken on our tone. And just to let you know, Joe, with that, what you're having a problem with the generations and the generative part of it. So whatever models that you're working through, there's a deeper research tools that are available. So if you're on websites that are under generating the viewer, then that's just a poor website. You won't find that on more powerful tools or more powerful websites. That was a problem a few years back, but you are
Yeah.
seeing that be corrected quickly. It's intuitive by you to catch that, but it's certainly been fixed. And I can help you with that if you're having a problem.
You mentioned, Bruno, authenticity or vibe, like the 70s vibe. You guys, each of your agents, right, that you guys call them, each of your agents knows, kind of acts differently. What are some specific techniques that you could share with the people listening to make sure that their content is authentic? And it might not be a quick fix. It might be make sure that you're talking to it every day, typing, whatever, communicating with the technology every day. What are some things you can do to make sure that the authenticity isn't lost in the generation of content, emails, text messages, even?
Well, for me, from coming from the legal background, I'm always like thinking about 4 more questions ahead of what I'm even asking it, and anticipating that answer. So from me, I kind of think in like a lawyerly background, just because that's how, for 25 years, that's what I was trained to do. So for my generator, we were sitting in a lending class, and, our lender started talking about, well, why don't you start figuring out, if people were in homes, how to generate more leads. And I thought to myself, okay, well, why don't I just throw this in here while he's talking and say, how many people have owned their homes outright in 19115, and or have they owned them for 10 plus years? Maybe somebody might be likely to then want to list with us, and we could do some prospecting in that area. So I took what he was saying as he was talking about it, and I threw it into my generator in the one sentence, and then I followed up with like 4 additional questions to kind of pinpoint it down. That's just one example for me.
Yeah, and as far as authenticity, Joe had touched on that. So there's something my first experience when I started learning Python, it was over 20 years ago, probably going on 25 now, when I first started with AGI at AGL. So, active generative intelligence is here. So it is starting to make decisions. So, Joe, to answer your question more directly, the more you give it, the better it's going to be.
Sure.
If you ask Sage, my generator, about me, it's going to give you information that can't be found anywhere but with our generator. From my silvery hair to personal things that no one knows other than my wife and God. Because if you do those things, obviously your privacy is your own. That's up to you. If you believe that you have a private life, I think you're a little bit fooled, because just because you don't put it on Facebook doesn't mean the man doesn't have your information.
That was the whole premise of our two truths and a lie. So you just pulled the whole cover off it.
So it's learning. It's absolutely learning. For instance, when I started building the workshops, I started realizing that it was starting to calculate my hours spent on each workshop, and it started changing the prices when I was sending out proposals, because it was saying, you're doing this for 4 hours, the price in the areas are going up, and it was literally learning right in front of me. So that can work for your looks if you're doing an avatar, or if you're doing something like Joe. The more you input, the more authentic it's going to be. Our generators are, you would never be able to tell the difference other than, the emojis and the special characters, and there's no mistakes. But,
Hmm.
but
We
you would
can
never
put
be able
one
to tell.
sentence. We
Yeah.
could say, tell mine's Atlas. Atlas, tell me everything about me. And it'll go on and on and on and on. And that's all I have to
Or
put in
more
at this point.
importantly, I could literally type, but I do this all the time. Sage, I'm in a rush. I need a Facebook post, positive real estate, a little bit of AI, and I walk out. You know what I mean? And it's really that quick. It'll have the hashtags, my website, my contact information, all done. So that's the kind of things, because it's learning.
You could tell if I am using AI because there's no misspellings.
Right. Me
So
too.
every once in a while, I'll just go in and misspell something just to keep everybody
100% right.
All right, so you guys are Bruno, you've been working in this field. You said you've been learning Python for 20 years. There are now, we're getting inundated almost regularly. Like I said, you got Grok, you got Google's AI, you got ChatGPT, you got Microsoft Word coming out with their Office Assistant that is also, I think it's also a large language model. How do you decide what's worth pursuing and what's a distraction? And can you help maybe clear the air for some of the people that are just getting started? Like, hey, I spent a lot of time here, not worth your time yet. This tool still needs a lot of work. Like, what have you learned in the last couple of years where people who are just getting started, where should they put their focus?
Terrific question. And if you can remember, we do go over this in the class. Why are we teaching these tools? So as we sit right now, it's actually going up. But the last I checked the statistics of all of the LLMs and all of the quote unquote sort of LLMs in the world right now, over 50% of the downloads are open AI. Okay. Chat GPT, as everyone refers to it. All right. But know this. The reason we chose OpenAI is because A, it's one of the oldest models. B, it was created by Elon Musk and Sam. These are two of the greatest. We could talk about their politics another day. But as far as great minds go, you're not going to find too many engineers that are more sharp. The next piece is OpenAI already did all their homework. So they're way ahead of DeepSeek and Grok. Grok's Elon Musk piece. It's a really nice piece and it's free, right? The back of Canva is OpenAI. The back of WhatsApp is OpenAI. The back of DALL-E is OpenAI. The iPhones are OpenAI. So once so the iPhone 16 already, your face is going to be OpenAI at some point. It's just coming, right? So
wait, back up. What do you mean by that? Your face is going to be OpenAI.
Your screen, just like Siri, is going to be gone, and it'll be OpenAI.
Okay. All right. Sorry. You said face was going to be. It kind of weirded me out there. Go ahead.
Well, that's out there too. The hologram computers and things are out there. They are out there, But yeah, so to answer your question, OpenAI is going to be the Nike. I mean, it already is. You see SoftBank just the other day pledge 500 million. They're coming hard. People realize that this is going to be the Nike. It doesn't mean, guys, that Grok and Leonardo, I'm an expert in all of these tools because I spent years on them. They're all excellent tools. But if you want to use, Canva with NVIDIA and Sora, and CapCut with integrations, like CapCut already uses OpenAI, right? So why would you want to use Grok and have to, mix into that, And it does work, guys. It all works,
So does someone so if someone's trying to tackle all of this, they take all of these integrations and they put it into a stack and then they put it into OpenAI. Is that how these all communicate with each other, or is it
No, they're already integrated. It's already done.
That's why we chose these two specifically. And then, CapCut is fun because you can utilize the video in that. But Canva and ChatGPT really work very nicely together and they're very user friendly. So when we were, publishing this book to make it easier for people to kind of download the right programs, because there's a million of them out there, and a lot of them are not user friendly, very techy, and people just don't have the tolerance to put even 2 seconds into them. So we're teaching people these two because they're the most easily teachable to people that can use things immediately after they're coming out of this workshop.
Yeah, here's an insider tip for everybody that's listening. And this is strictly opinion, but just yesterday I probably did 4,000 lines of code. So I spend a lot of time with this. Canva is the most powerful.
Sounds like you were to say something else.
I saw KJ's face. I was like,
Code. Oh, code. Right.
You laugh, and I'm like, I know.
That's a different podcast.
I'm like, what is he going to say?
So anyway.
Okay.
Canva is the most powerful tool on the planet right now.
Canva.
There's nothing that matches Canva's power. It's so powerful, you only get 500 generations a month. That's how powerful it is.
What do you mean you only like so many people are trying to use it that they're limiting the number of generations that they're giving you?
Yep. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean creations of flyers, artificial intelligence credits.
Huh. Where do you think the, and this is just another side question, but where do you think the ethical lines are going to land around AI creation and labeling things AI? And, that I know that's already starting in some ways. Like, do you see that becoming more and more of a conversation, especially, given we don't want to get political, but I feel like that's going to start to reach a political sphere as well.
So I don't think there's going to be any political regulations here. I think that they're going to let the American spirit run wild because we're, in an arms race, if you will, for AI, with data centers and everything. So I can't imagine them slowing down our engineers at this moment in time, Ken. So for that part, I think that'll be just fine. As far as copyright infringement and things like that, you already see, and I implore everyone that's using any AI tools whatsoever, you're already seeing the symbols in your stories and, label AI content on Facebook and Instagram. At some point, because I can detect, there's detectors to see if there's AI code in an image or a post. So at some point, Facebook's going to say, if you don't label it, the post will be flagged immediately.
Flag or label? Like, do you think they'll just label it this possible AI?
Yeah, they'll either label it or they'll take it down. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because I'm seeing, like, image, for me, what scares me about AI, and this is one that our friend Guillermo had introduced me to, where it will take my image, I'll read a script into it, and I forget the tool that I was using. You guys might know.
He was using Syllabi, probably.
Syllabi. And then I'll just feed it a script, completely different script, and it will recreate me giving a version. And I imagine as that gets better and better, the whole deep faking and, there's going to be some real hazards down the road. And I'm wondering, what protections are going to be in place so that people aren't, manipulated and tricked and used.
Well, it depends on what side of the coin you're looking there, because you'd be like, I swear it wasn't me. That was definitely AI. So,
listen, guys, in the end, you have to do your own research. You have to double check everything. Your best protection, Ken, is your own brain and your own mind and your own carefulness. It's just like if you're going to buy a gun or you're going to, if you're going to buy something that has extreme power, if you want to quote Aunt May, with great power comes great responsibility. So if America is going to allow us to have all the information in all the world at your fingertips, you're going to have some responsibility there. And believe that the man is watching if you want to, do something traumatic with your AI. I promise you'll have a door knock.
That's a good point.
That's fair. Yeah.
All good stuff. All right, I am ready. Let's first of all of this stuff was awesome, and I can't wait to have you guys on again because as you guys dig further, you've inspired me to really wrap my hands around it as well, and I'm doing as much as I can on it, and these conversations are just going to get better and better. And maybe our avatars will just have a podcast, and my avatar will interview your avatar.
Well, just so that for the viewers. Atlas and Sage, they do date. If I ask Sage who Atlas is, they have full range of who they are. And I know that's a little wonky, but they're our assistants, and we want it to be completely, going back to your question, authentic.
Well, that and to what Joe said, because they became your actual assistants based off of everything that you've given it, it's unique to
So
yourself,
they have to
right?
share information.
So as they have offspring, you can create additional assistants to do different things, essentially a whole work office,
And that's how
right?
we
So,
explain it. Because each assistant can hold a terabyte of information. So, mine's a creative director, hers is an engineer, maybe the next one's going to be a builder, so that it only has building information in it. You load it up, and that's the way you'll be able to surround
So
yourself
wild. That's so crazy.
and
Did you?
and
Yeah,
it's
you officially just
I know,
I
I
was
know,
good. It was good. It was good. And
that's
then
the
boom,
tough
you just
part.
started.
When we say
Hey,
it,
we're
the
hoping this
brokerages
next
talk
one
about
grows up to be a doctor.
All right, let's go to our two truths and a lie, because this usually sparks some pretty good conversation. I want to recap what the two truths and a lie were. Bruno met President Bush and was able to greet him as he came off of Air Force One. Stacie had an opportunity, an invitation to possibly join an Olympic gymnastics team and turned it down. And Bruno also just recently climbed a mountain in Washington. So factually, were those the three? Was that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Joe, which one of those was a lie?
I think there's a twist today. I think the real Bruno and Stacie are somewhere on a beach. We're talking.
I wish.
We're talking to avatars right now. No. So the climbing a mountain. So mentioned you lost some weight to climb a mountain. So that's pretty specific. So I'm gonna believe that to be true. The gymnastics, Olympic gymnastics, I believe that's also true. So I'm gonna say that driving around with George W. is the lie.
I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna go there too. So somehow or another, that was the lie. Maybe it was a different president, but what was the truth?
The two truths were the gymnastics and the meeting the president.
Wow.
You didn't climb a mountain.
I did not yet.
All right. So Stacie, tell me more about the gymnastics thing.
So I started in gymnastics when I was 8 years old and competed and traveled around for years and years. And when I got to a certain level, that gymnastics studio put me in touch, or my mother in touch at the time, with a place called the Parkettes, who were based out of Harrisburg, and that particular gymnasium trained individuals for the Olympic competitions, or to at least attempt to get into the Olympic competitions. And my mom was all for it, ready to sell everything she had and move on our way. And I was just going to do gymnastics 24/7. That, to me, I loved gymnastics, but I didn't love it enough to go that far. So I turned that down.
24/7 is no joke.
That's
No.
And Bruno, tell me about this motorcade. How first of all, how'd you get invited?
So I've been a student of politics and geohistory my whole life. I've always enjoyed it. And in my younger years, as a small business owner, I owned a couple pool halls and bars. And, you need to be in local politics if you're going to do those things for permits and things like that. And, my stature grew and doing more local things. And, I was getting ready to become a ward leader, and some of the local politicians asked me if I wanted to do press security for George Bush when he came to Pennsylvania for a spiritual convention. I got to go a day early, stay in the hotel room with the FBI, and then we went to the airport to meet him. I got to see the bomb detectors and everything, and you don't know which car he's in. Back then, they were all pretty much the same. They didn't have the beast. And it was pretty wild. We got to spend the whole day, 2 days really, with the FBI and how they set up and get to see it all.
Did you see inside Air Force One?
I did not. No,
I'd love to hear about
I
that.
had to be. So I was a Station 3. So I was always within 300 feet of the president.
And this was President George H. W. Bush, not George W.
Yep.
Okay, so this is the dad.
Not the son. The son.
The son. Okay. You know, I lost the Trivial Pursuit question once because I said George Bush Jr. and he's not a junior.
He's not.
Junior, no.
I still think it was a technicality, and I should have won that damn pie. But
I would agree.
You just thought it was the son, you know? That's all.
Yeah, George Jr.
I'd accept it.
Yeah, it's cool. All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate it. I know you got a really cool dinner to go to tonight with Zillow.
Yeah.
You guys are big shots over there, and
With Zillow Brass. Yeah.
what's that?
We're getting this. They're buying us dinner. Zillow Brass.
Oh my, that's awesome, man. Well, just make sure you tell them Ken Jordan said hello. They'll know who you're talking about. And I appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and I can't wait to catch up again on the next time we get a chance to chat.
Yes,
Take care,
absolutely.
guys.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah,
Joe,
guys.
And thank
Awesome,
you
guys.
again for having us, Ken. It was fun.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Selling the Dream. We know you don't want to miss a single episode, so go subscribe today wherever you get your podcasts. And then make sure to share the show with your friends and leave us a review.